In this day and age, with the pandemic and everything going on, so many moms are wearing so many hats. Not only are we moms and career people of, employees or entrepreneurs, but we also are often teachers now for our kids, housekeepers. I mean, you name it, we're doing it because we don't really have a lot of options. So what better person to talk to but someone who has been doing this whole wearing a lot of hats thing for a long time. I have such a great interview today for you guys of someone who's been running a side business and working full time for quite a while and doing an amazing job at both. And I can't wait to share with you how she's doing it and what advice she has for you today. Glue. It's messy, it's sticky, it gets everywhere, but it's also really useful. Just like the glue that we need to put together the pieces of our life as busy working moms. We have after-school activities, we have homework, we have cleaning, we have laundry, and, we want to spend time with our kids as well in the process and maybe even have some time for ourselves. This podcast is for the busy moms out there who are balancing work, life, and everything in between. And we all know that in between encompasses a lot of things. If you're a mom who wants to do the best in all areas of life, but still have time for yourself, this podcast is for you. I love to interview other moms and find out what works for them, get ideas from them, get inspired by them, and learn, we're all in this together. But I also like to share my own tips, tricks, struggles, triumphs, and share it all with you. So grab a load of laundry, lock yourself in the bathroom, go for a walk, do whatever you got to do. But I am just so glad you're here. I have such a treat for you guys today. I am so excited for you to hear this interview. It is so fitting for the beginning of this new year, this incredible new year after the year we just had. I have such an amazing person to talk to you guys about so many things. Today, I am sharing an interview I did with Jen Chapin. She has a YouTube channel, which a lot of you guys are probably familiar with. She is a full-time nurse, and I get to talk to her about how her career has changed a lot over the years. She's a mom to 2 kids, ages 8 and 11. She is a wife, and she also runs her very successful YouTube business on the side and fitting it into the nooks and crannies of her day. She has so much great advice about how you can do it all, but maybe not all at once, how you can fit everything in, going back to school, routines, apps that she uses. She even talks a little bit about postpartum depression and miscarriage and just so many things that I think so many of us can relate to. So I think whether you get lots of tips and tricks from this episode or just hearing somebody who's been through it and knows what it's like, this episode has so much to offer. So I cannot wait for you guys to listen. So let's just jump right in. Hey, Jen, so excited to have you here on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Why don't we just start by having you tell everybody if they're not familiar with you? I'm sure a lot of my audience also is overlapping with your audience, but why don't you share a little bit about your family, who you are, ages, stuff like that?
Sure. My name is Jen Chapin, and I am a full-time working mom and a YouTuber. I live in Eastern Iowa, and I have 2 kids, and I'm married. My husband is Adam, and my 2 kids are Kira, who is 11, and Connor, who is 8. We also have a dog named Murphy, and I work full-time outside the home. I've been a nurse for about 15 years. And a couple years ago, I started posting on YouTube more lifestyle and food and kind of family working mom content. And so now I've been able to grow my YouTube channel. And so sometimes I like to say I have 2 full-time jobs, but it's pretty fun. So I love doing it.
For sure. Yeah. I totally get the whole 2 full-time jobs thing when I was doing daycare and YouTube. It's a lot. So we'll jump into that more in a little bit. But why don't you share a little bit about your journey as a working mom? Were you always working when you had kids? How long maternity leaves did you have? And how did you balance that? Did they go to daycare? That kind of thing.
Sure. So, I got married pretty young, or at least I think I feel like I was fairly young. I went to college to be a nurse and got out of nursing school when I was 23. My husband and I had dated throughout college, and so
Yeah.
shortly after I graduated, we got married. So I was 23 when I got married.
Okay.
Um, and looking back now, I feel like that was pretty young, and I feel like maybe things could have gone sideways, but I got
Yeah.
I got a good guy, so it all worked
Yeah.
out. We didn't have kids right away. We waited a few years, probably about 3 years.
Okay.
My first pregnancy actually ended in miscarriage. So before
Mm.
my daughter was born, I had been pregnant and I had a miscarriage at about, I think I was about 9 or 10 weeks along.
No.
And so that was pretty traumatic for me at the
Yeah.
time, just because I was so excited and
Hmm.
you plan things, and even though you haven't known for maybe but 3 or 4 weeks, it's still pretty devastating.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
um, so that happened, and then once the doctor had given us the go ahead to start trying again, it took us almost 8 months to get pregnant. Which now, when I say that, it doesn't seem like it's very long, but when you're trying to get pregnant and you you don't, month after month,
Right. Oh, for sure.
it can be a little bit hard. And so finally, we were able to get pregnant with my oldest daughter, Kira, and she was born about 4 weeks early. And so my whole time that I had been pregnant with her, and after Adam and I got married, I had been working full time as a nurse. That's what I went to school for. I never really planned on being a stay at home mom.
Okay.
So after my daughter was born, she ended up in the NICU for about a month after she was
Okay.
born, which was pretty unexpected. I think she was only about 3 weeks early. However, she had meconium aspiration, and so
Okay.
she was on respiratory support for a while. And even though I was a nurse, I've never been a NICU nurse or a peds nurse, and so it was a whole new experience for me. It was very difficult and traumatic. And at that time, we didn't have really the finances for me to be staying home
Right.
for a long period of time. And so with her, I really only took about 6 or 7 weeks of maternity leave. And so
Wow.
for a month of that, she was in the hospital. And so by the time
Oh
I
man.
had to go back to work, I really only had about 2 weeks at home with her. And so I really experienced pretty profound postpartum depression after she was born, which I listened to your episode on postpartum depression, and I would totally
Yeah.
recommend that anyone that
Oh,
wants to know more about that or has experienced that, go and listen to that, because what you
thank
described
you.
was very similar to what I experienced. And I did get diagnosed after several months, and
Okay.
I think the hardest transition during that time was really, having to go back to work while you have a 2-month-old baby.
Mm.
They're not sleeping. You're having to get up several times throughout the night and then wake up at 6 o'clock to go to work.
Right.
And
Yep.
it's very hard. And that's really the only time that I considered quitting my job to be a stay at home mom. But I really, something inside of me said, no, don't do that. Just, this is a phase, this too shall pass, etc. So I kept on working. And of course, as they get older, that works out and they start sleeping through the night. And I think a
Right.
big consideration too is that we had a lot of family help at the time. My mom
Okay.
and Adam's mom were super helpful in terms of watching her while we were at work. And after my son was born, they're 3 years apart. I was able to take 10 weeks of maternity leave, which was
Okay.
much, much, much better.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
still not a lot. And I know that people in other countries think that it's crazy that we go back to work when our babies are 10 or 12 weeks old. But compared to 6 weeks, it was a lot better.
yeah. Oh, for sure.
Um, I have never really envisioned myself being a stay-at-home mom, and so we've always just figured it out and made it work, because it's always been important to me to pursue a career.
Right. Wow. I was just like, wow. Yeah, I can't I have no words for just I mean, I went through postpartum depression, but I didn't have I mean, I to me, I had a traumatic birth story, but it was nowhere near like a NICU stay and 4 weeks away from my baby and stuff like that. So I can only imagine, and just trying to recover from that and work and all of that. I can only imagine how hard that must have been. And yeah, that's something I think too, when people, when people talk about having, some people have a whole year off and it sounds so nice, but then you think of like a lot of people have mental health issues on top of the physical issues of birth. And like, it would be so nice to have more time. But do you think work was harder at that time than it already would have been? Or do you think for you, like maybe it kind of took your mind off of it? Or how was that experience for you?
I think that work has always given me a sense of purpose differently than motherhood has.
Yeah.
I do feel a sense of purpose as a mother, but I also feel a sense of purpose in my career. And for me personally, and I'm not saying that it should be the way anyone else feels, I really crave that sense of purpose outside of the home and outside of my
Mhm.
children. So that's really something that has always helped me um, get through hard times, is focusing on that and, excelling in that environment. I think too, when I go back and I look at my resume during those years when I had little
Yeah.
kids, I really couldn't do anything extra. I mean,
Yeah.
literally the bare minimum that I could do is go to work and do my job and come home. I couldn't, pursue higher education. I couldn't pursue certifications. I couldn't take on extra projects, because literally all I could do was keep my job
Yeah,
during
for
that
sure.
time.
Yeah.
And I was even lucky in that I had a really great boss who was very flexible. She didn't make me feel bad if I called in because my kids were sick or something like that.
Mhm.
So I can't imagine, some other women that do it in more hostile work environments. So yeah, I do think that it's very hard to juggle, and I really couldn't begin to excel and go above and beyond in my career until my kids started to get older and need me less and less.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of, and luckily right now, like I am doing this full time. So that's helpful because I just work around them. But I mean, we're in the thick of it. So people that work outside the home and it's just props, props to them. It's a lot.
Well, it's all
um,
hard. I mean, everything's hard
yeah,
in its own
choose your
way.
heart.
Yeah.
That's true. That's so true. How would you say your vision of being a working mom is different or similar to how you thought it would be before becoming a mom?
Well, I always want to be a positive role model for my kids. I have a boy and a girl, so it's not always just important for me to be a strong female role model for my daughter, but also my
Right.
son, so he sees that. I want them to see that women can do anything that they set their mind to. I want them to see that women can excel in their career and also have passions. I want them to see that women can, financially support themselves. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way I was raised in a more traditional and very religious household, in which
Mhm.
women are the traditional caretakers. Women don't necessarily go to college. Women maybe have a job, but it's a lower paying job. And, just more of
Yeah.
that traditional sort of like homemaker role of women.
Mhm.
And I always really resented that as a child, because I thought, that's not all my life has to be. Like, my life can't just be that. I can't just
Right.
grow up and have babies and that's it. So I think I had always wanted to have a career. I never really sat down and thought, when I wanted to have children, about how that would work. I I don't know. I guess I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought. But I never did, plan on quitting my job to stay home full time.
Right. Okay. And then how has your career, changed as becoming a mom? So you've always been a nurse, and would you mind kind of talking about like what kind of nursing you've done and kind of how your career has progressed up until now?
Sure. So I worked for many years while I was in nursing school and before. in long-term care. And I also worked in the hospital setting as a certified nurse's assistant and an LPN and a secretary and those kind of things. So I've sort of
Okay.
done everything on the way up, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, I have mostly experience in long-term care and hospital-based nursing. Acute med surg is what I have the most experience in. When I was working on the floor, taking care of patients, direct care, when I was, those first few years I was out of school,
Yep.
the staffing ratios were really terrible at that point,
Okay.
and I felt every day I left work feeling like, what did I miss? Like, what, it was just so busy, and you just knew that you couldn't take care of the patients the way you wanted to take care of them. And so I did that for a while, and then I moved into more of like a case manager role. So just kind of a different kind of nursing, but not necessarily at the bedside.
Okay.
And then 5 years later, I moved into the role I'm in now, which is more in healthcare data analytics.
Okay.
So a lot of people in healthcare are probably familiar with quality improvement, which essentially looks at data in the healthcare field, and then we do improvement projects based on that. So, I'm still having an impact on patient care, and I'm able to use, the skills I have as far as like data analytics and process improvement to be able to facilitate improvement projects that impact patient care. It's just a different kind of nursing. I think that's the great thing about so many fields, but nursing especially, is that you can do so many different things
Yeah,
with
for
that.
sure.
There's just so many different types of nursing. So really, kind of the opportunities are endless.
Right. No, I love that. It's the whole medical industry is so interesting to me. Like the only real, time I've needed it to be like in a hospital was giving birth, and I was just in awe. Like how do the nurses know so much and do so much? So I can only imagine if you don't have enough time to focus on them and you feel like you're going home missing something, that'd be really stressful, especially because you probably went into it wanting to help people. I can't imagine you would go into nursing if you don't care about
Yeah,
people.
right.
Um did you have to go back to school for any of those promotions or, movements in your nursing career?
So I did. I went back to school to get a master's degree, and I have a master's in nursing administration. So essentially, that does open certain doors for you,
Yeah.
especially in the medical field. You oftentimes need a master's degree if you want to teach or do consulting work. A lot of times, many management and leadership positions will also require a master's degree. That was also another kind of tough time in my life when I went back to school to do that. My kids were still, they were a little bit, yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm a glutton for punishment because like they start sleeping through the night, and then I'm like, oh, I'm
Right.
gonna go to grad school. Like,
Yes.
so like they were 3 and 5 when I went back, and
Okay,
it took
that
me
was my
about three
next
years to get
question.
through. Um, but it was fine, and my husband is super supportive. And so that helps a lot too. But yeah, that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of in my life, and what I hope to instill in my kids too, is just the value of education.
Yeah.
Because no one can ever take that away from you.
Right.
And especially a lot of places, if you work while you're going back to school, they'll subsidize some of that tuition.
Right.
So it's hard doing it, but if your employer is helping you along with that, that's a good financial incentive too, because grad school is I mean, it's very expensive
Oh, yeah.
here in the States.
And how did you fit that in at the time? Just like after the kids went to bed, weekends, or how did you fit that in?
Yeah, I did a pretty flexible online program. The classes were very condensed. It would be like a semester class, kind of condensed into 6 weeks. And so the work was pretty intense. But yeah, I mean, at that point, my kids were sleeping through the night. So we've always had a really strict 8 o'clock bedtime routine.
Yeah.
So, yep, I'd put them in bed, and then I'd be at the table studying and writing papers till midnight, and then get up and do it all over again.
Man, it's dedication, but I'm sure a lot of moms listening will relate. That's you don't really have a choice if you want to go back to school as a mom. You
Yep.
you make it work. basically then, is that when you started YouTube, like once you got your master's, or were you trying to juggle three different things at the same time?
So I had a very small YouTube channel. I think I first started my YouTube channel in 2013.
Okay.
And it was mostly sharing my crafting. I used to scrapbook a lot and do paper crafts, and so I wasn't really serious about it for many years. I would just post videos here and there. And in 2017, my husband and we had saved for many years and were able to build a house. And I suddenly had the idea that I wanted to start filming cooking videos and grocery hauls in my new kitchen. And my husband was like, who watches this? Like, no one's
Yeah.
going to watch this. like,
Oh,
like,
that's
who wants
funny.
to watch you talk about your groceries? Um, and so that it was really right around that time that I even discovered this whole niche here on YouTube. I mean, I had never been an avid consumer of YouTube except to watch like crafting videos and how-to videos. And so I started watching all of these moms on YouTube, and I thought to myself, there's a real underrepresentation of moms who work outside the home.
Hmm.
And I think that I have something to offer in terms of that. Not that I'm an expert in any way,
Right.
shape, or form, but if I can help someone feel like they're not alone, or feel like, here's a tip that you might not have known about before. And so, yeah, I started basically by posting meal prep videos, and I posted grocery hauls. And then I did a lot of like school lunch videos when my kids were younger. They don't really appreciate those cutesy
Yeah.
lunches too much anymore.
That's funny.
And then when the whole keto craze took off, I think that's really what started giving my channel a lot of traction, just because that was
Hmm.
trendy at the time.
Yeah.
And YouTube is a lot about, kind of finding the right balance of like what you like to create versus what your audience likes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I started getting tons of views on these keto meal preps, and I was like, "What is going on?" I wasn't even doing keto like that religiously. I do it
Right.
during the week, and then on the weekends, I'd be like, "Oh, let's order pizza."
Yeah.
And so, and I'm like, so yeah, so that's when it kind of started taking off, and I thought, this is fun, and if I can make a couple $100 a month doing this, like, oh, what's the harm in that? And now it's grown to so much more than that, which I'm so grateful for. But that's kind of how I got started, very innocently. I mean, I think no one really gets on YouTube and says, I want to get rich doing this, because if you do
Right.
that, you're going to give up, because
Oh, for sure.
for sure. I mean, it takes years before you make a penny sometimes.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I like my journey into it. I started talking about planner videos way probably around the same time you were on there doing scrapbooking. It was before I had kids. So yeah, it was probably around 2013, 2012, maybe even. And then we were renovating a house, and then we got pregnant, and it was just kind of did the vlogging thing, which I don't really like doing like of my kids anymore, but I like sharing mom stuff like you do. I think it's just really cool to connect with other moms, especially, I was doing daycare full time, so that was a whole, kind of like you were doing underrepresented. Nobody was really talking about that. So that was pretty cool to, give a voice to that and, inspire other people to do the same. So would you say you look at it as a business now versus when you started?
Yes, it has definitely turned into, a legitimate side business, or I mean, a lot of people call it a side hustle, but at this point, it's a full-time business on top of my
Yeah.
regular job. So yeah, and I've talked before on my channel, there's a variety of revenue streams that
Yep.
YouTubers get paid from. And so yeah, it's been really, I mean, it's been really good for our family. But I also don't just do it for the money,
Right.
because really, I mean, the money is a nice perk, but at the end of the day, the thing that I like is sharing my life and connecting with other people, chatting with other people. I've made lifelong friends, doing this that I never would have met before.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's definitely the sort of the drive that I have behind it. Cause I have to have some kind of drive, or it's like, why would I, why would I
Right.
spend all this time on it? Right. Yeah.
Right. When you already have a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be a lot, and it would be really draining for not the best reason. I think if you're going to have anything on the side, you should somewhat enjoy it at least and have a purpose
A
behind it.
passion for it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then how do you fit that in now? Is it a little easier having something on the side with older kids?
Yeah.
Slightly older
So,
kids.
yeah, my kids are they're pretty self sufficient. I mean, my younger one needs a little bit more help. I think that one thing that I've had to navigate as a parent and in my marriage is really not not doing it all. Like,
Yeah.
I think as moms, sometimes we feel like we are the ones that have to take care of the school stuff. We have to take care of the field trips. We have to take care of the shopping. We have to take care of this. And I still do a lot of those traditional gender roles, but I've
Mhm.
also had to switch my mindset and be like, okay, these kids are half my husband's also.
Right.
And so let's do this equally. Not that he's not willing to do it. I think just
Right.
sometimes as moms and control freaks and, how
Yeah.
we are.
Yes.
Yeah. And my husband is not one to be, he's more of a person that likes to like relax after work, whereas I'm like, oh, what can I do? We just
Yep.
have different energy levels, and I respect that about him and he respects that about me. And we're very flexible in terms of like, you take the kids to practice and I'll pick them up. But if there's a night
Mhm.
when, I have a deadline and I have a video to film and I say, hey, can you do this tonight? Yeah. I mean, we're flexible in that way. So, I've tried to keep track before of how many hours a day I spend um, on YouTube, and I mean, I guess how many hours a week I spend.
Right.
I mean, I would say a conservative estimate is probably 30 hours a week. But it just depends, because there's also times when I have pockets of time elsewhere, like maybe I'm waiting for a dentist appointment and I'm,
Right.
responding to comments, or so
Right.
it's just you're always doing something,
Right. And yeah, I don't think people always think about that part of it. It's just like you make a video, you edit it, you put it up. But even that part, like the putting it up takes, I'm like, I'm finally got the video done. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I have to make the thumbnail and do it's like, it's a whole process. It takes more time than you even think it does till you break it down. Because especially when you enjoy a lot of it, it doesn't feel like work all the time. But yeah, you have to still connect with people and think of ideas and set it up and plan the time, and it it can be a lot when you add it all up, and especially because you're doing, how many videos do you average a week?
So I would I would love to post a video every day, and sometimes
Yeah.
I do that, but many times it's usually 4 to 5 times a week, 3 to 5 times a week, depending on the week. But I think one thing about YouTube, especially, is as you grow your channel and your platform and you start to have larger revenue, you can also kind of farm out some of that work. So right
Right.
now I have an agency that I work with who manages all of my sponsorships. So any video that I do with, a sponsored video or a brand integration or something like that, they manage all of that for me. And then they also edit some of my videos. So they don't
Okay.
edit
That's
100%
cool.
of my videos. I'm
Right.
still editing some of them, but there's no way that I can produce the volume of content that I want to produce unless I
Right.
have help. And
Yeah, that was
so
my next
that's something
question.
that's been difficult for me to like accept that help. But once I do, it's so much better, because part of the thing with YouTube is just all of the administrative tasks. It's like haggling back and forth with a company about how much they
Right.
want to pay you, and they always want to lowball you, and
Right.
like,
Right.
and then having support to be able to edit some of my videos has helped tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not, so it may appear that I'm doing it all, but I'm surely not. And surely
Right.
sink is full of dishes and my
Right.
house is full of laundry. So
Right. No, and I appreciate you saying that too, because I, try to be very authentic and real, but it's still so hard to be like, you're only seeing this small part. I'm not, because some people are like, how do you do it all? I'm like, I don't, but I can't like take the camera and just show you, everything. And, some of that is private. Like you don't need to share everything. And I think that's healthy too. Would you share maybe a couple tips you might have for somebody who has a full-time job and maybe wants to get on YouTube or do something in that realm, maybe Instagram or something like that, of how to fit it in and any tips for getting started?
Um, I would say that first off, you have to find something that you're passionate about. There may be something that's out there that's really popular right now, like skateboarding. I'm using that as an example. May
Yeah.
be really popular right now, and so if you go into social media or whatever pursuits that you are pursuing, thinking that I'm going to make it big because I'm going to jump in on this trend, but it's something you're not really passionate about, it's probably not going to work because people can see your authenticity. And at
Mhm.
the end of the day, all you have is your integrity. I think that what people don't understand about being a social media quote figure, which I don't even like to call myself that,
Right.
but people will try to tear you down and they will try to, say mean things about you and meddle in your personal life and all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, all you have is your integrity. And so you really just have to be authentic. You have to do something that you're passionate about. And I think that if you do that, once you sort of get some traction on whatever you're doing, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatever, I think something that I never really thought about is really being active in the community. So, the space that we're in on YouTube, if you want to be in that space and you're creating videos, then go out there and comment on other people's videos, reach out to other creators that are similar to what you do and say, hey, are you interested in doing a collaboration? Because we're all stronger when we help each other, right?
Right. For
Um,
sure.
yeah, I think that staying true to yourself and doing something that you're passionate about is definitely would be my advice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think it's great advice. And yeah, like if you start with something you're not passionate about, then you're stuck with that for or you have to pivot and then you lose your audience. Like I can imagine if I was talking about skateboarding, like like what we do is our life, a lot of it, like you go to Costco, you film the haul and like there's planning and stuff involved too. It's not just that, but it's pretty easy to talk about that because it's our life and it's something we
Yeah.
love. And then you love to cook. And so you talk about that. And um, do you want to talk a little bit about your cookbook? You
Sure.
probably can't say a whole lot, but how did that come to be?
Yeah. So that's something good that happened this year. Everyone likes to say that 2020 is
Yeah.
the worst year ever. And yeah,
Right.
it has been a bad year, but there have been some good things. So yeah, a couple months ago, a publisher reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in writing a cookbook for them. And I thought about it and then I said yes, because who in the world would want to pass up that opportunity?
Right.
Um,
Awesome.
so yeah, I'm currently in the writing process right now. It will be the topic of the cookbook will be based around pantry cooking. So a lot of it won't be super fancy recipes. It's using what you have inside your house, with a few select ingredients. And some fresh ingredients. And these are all the things that you can make. And so I'm really excited about it because a lot of the recipes that I'm fitting into this book are recipes that I've been cooking for years and have been passed down to me by my family. And so some of them I've been able to cook for my subscribers on YouTube, but
Okay.
I'm really excited to be able to just have one place where I can refer those people to and they can have a hard copy of those recipes. So right now the
Absolutely.
release date is scheduled to be April or May of 2021, but I don't know anything. I
Right.
don't have any other information than that. I'm still in the
Okay.
first draft writing process right now.
Okay. And how are you fitting that in? Like, were you like, oh, sweet, I'm excited? Or were you like, why did I do this to myself? Or
I'm,
kind of a
I mean, a
mixture?
little bit of both. I'm the
Yeah.
person that's like, yes, I'll do this. And then I don't
Yeah.
think like, wow, this is really going to take a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What I've been able to do is kind of break it down into smaller tasks. So instead of saying, well, by next Friday, I have to have chapter 5 written, I need to break that out and say, okay, on Monday, I have to write 4 recipes. Tuesday, I
Okay.
have to write 5 recipes. Thursday, and that has helped me manage my time a little bit better because I am a procrastinator by nature. And so I really have to work on that. That's something I don't want to say negative, but that's something about me that I really have to force myself not to fall
Yeah.
into.
And then how do you keep, like, just hearing you talk about all this stuff? I'm like, how is she keeping all this straight? Like, are you a avid planner? Are you just really good? Or do you use the procrastination and like, shoot, the deadline's coming up, I got to do it now? Or how do you manage all of that?
Yeah, I have to write everything down. I try to stay organized as much as I can. For the cookbook, as soon as I type up a draft, I print it out on my computer and put it into a binder. I have, if you could see my desk right now, you would just see sticky notes just like
Yeah.
all over the place, like one of those, like, you know, police departments where they're trying to find
Right.
the murderer and there's just like
Yeah.
a string and sticky notes taped all over.
Oh,
So yeah, I write everything down. I do have a planner where I keep track of my editorial calendar, I guess you could call it, in YouTube. So I have a monthly view where I write down every day what video is going to be posted. And then I kind of work backward from that. So I
okay.
know if this is going to be posted then, I have to film on this day. I have a weekly planner that I look at in terms of like activities that we have, other engagements that I have. And yeah, I mean, just basically trying to stay as organized as possible and writing a lot of things down.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm a sticky note user too. I get it. It's just like I feel like our brains as moms can only hold so much and then the rest just comes out in like sticky notes and lists. Or you just forget. Like it's
Yeah.
just so much anyway, without anything else on
Yep.
top of it. Hearing you talk about all this stuff, and then I'm starting to wonder, like, how does she have time for her husband or like special events and stuff like that? Are you saying no to a lot right now? Are you able to fit it all in? Just share a little bit about that.
I mean, so I do have to make a conscious effort to spend time with my husband. And I mean that in a way that I don't know if you're familiar with like the love languages
Mhm.
concept, and some of the audience probably is, but essentially there's a certain way that everyone likes to receive love or attention. And so my husband, his love language is quality time, which is
Okay.
difficult for me because that's not
Right.
my love language. And so I think being aware of that and being aware of what my kids need from me, there are times when, if I had my way, I would just work until midnight. But there are times when I have to say, no, I need to shut it off and I'm going to make time to spend with my husband, or I'm going to make time to spend with my child, or we're going to play a game or do whatever. And I would say that, for parents that work outside the home, I think that's one of the biggest struggles that they have is they're
Mhm.
like, they feel so guilty, I don't get to spend any time with my kids. It's like, your kids don't need you once they're grown up a little bit, they don't need you to be stuck at the hip, for 5
Right.
hours a night. Fill their cup in little ways,
Right.
maybe take one of them to Starbucks after school and buy them a new book or something, or maybe play a board game with one. And if you put in that time, you know, it doesn't have to be big, grand,
For sure. Yeah.
hours long, this,
Right.
that, or the other. And I know that it's different, like the stage that you're in now where your kids are really little. That's a little bit harder. It's more draining because they
Oh yeah.
physically need you
Yes.
all the time. And it's a hard stage. I had a hard time with that with that stage
Yes.
too.
Yes. And now, like, I love my baby. I never want it to come out like I don't love my kids. I love them so much, but it's a lot. And now starting all over, I'm like, okay, like I have 5 more years of this. And then, but I'm starting to see, my 5-year-old like is becoming so independent now. And I'm like, okay, the 3-year-old will be there soon. And then they can kind of help, as when you have more, then they can kind of help too, which I didn't know how helpful a 5-year-old could be. It's been amazing. So I'm sure, with 8 and 11-year-olds, like it's a whole different ball game. Like they actually probably like spending time away from you, where I feel like mine, like
Yeah.
I don't think they know that there's something other than me in their world. Like it's just mom all the time. I'm like, just go play. Don't understand. I'm not that cool. Like you're gonna hate me pretty soon. I guess
Yeah.
I should cherish it, which I do, but it is a lot sometimes.
It's exhausting. And I think too, like there are times when as a family we'll do something like we'll go, I mean, this is all pre this year
Oh
before no one
yeah.
could do anything.
Right.
But I'd say, okay, well, we're gonna go, we're gonna just like even a little getaway on the weekend
Yeah.
where, Friday through Sunday, like we're not gonna bring work with us and we're just gonna spend time together. Now we're getting to the stage where my daughter's getting to be towards that teenager age where
Yeah.
she's like, oh, I don't want to be with you guys.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
it starts swinging the other way, and then it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I try not to think about those years of like 3 daughters. Why? I love them, but I don't even wanna think
That's
about it.
gonna be fun, fun
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
I'm like, really fun when they're little. I'll probably get a few sweet years of all 3 of them liking me, and then it'll probably be downhill from there, but it's what we sign up for,
That's
being
right.
moms. And then what would you say is your favorite part about being a working mom, like a working outside the home? And you could even throw in YouTube in there too. Any favorite parts about it?
I think that the sense of accomplishment that I get makes everything worth it. I think that women, we really can have it all in a sense. And I don't when I say have it all, I don't mean that like we can kill it in every single area of our
Right.
life 100%. But I think sometimes we can tend to sell ourselves short. And I think that sometimes we don't do things or don't pursue things because we maybe perceive that they might be hard. And there are hard things about it, but I always tell my kids that nothing worth having is ever easy, right?
Hmm.
So it's going to be hard, but at the end of the day, I think that sense of accomplishment is worth it, and knowing that I can make a difference both in the professional world and in
Hmm.
my family's life is really important to me. So
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I think that's an answer for a lot of working moms. It's just the fulfillment of it, and something, I mean, motherhood is definitely fulfilling. We're doing something. Sometimes the reward is way delayed, like especially like right now in the throes of it. I'm like, they don't see anything that's good about what I'm doing. But one day I hope they'll appreciate. But with a job, you can kind of see more day to day, like, okay, these are the hours I'm putting in, this is what I'm contributing, and it's kind of a more instant gratification in some jobs. I mean, every job is different, but I think probably with nursing too, you're actually seeing and creating programs and stuff that are bettering the clinic or hospital or whatever. I think, that's probably really cool to see your work like come to life. And then what would you say are some of the biggest struggles that you've experienced being a working mom?
I think early on I would allow myself to feel guilty, and I think that's tougher when your kids are younger and they're in that clingy stage. It is hard to leave them at daycare while
Oh
you're at
yeah, I bet.
work. And then, you know, you even get it from family members sometimes. It's like, well, I guess if you want to have the daycare, raise your kids, or, just snotty comments like that.
Right.
And I think that can be hard, but I always when I looked at my kids and how I was able to send them to daycare and they were able to thrive academically and socially. My son went to a more structured daycare when he was in his toddler years, and oh my gosh, he was potty trained in like 2 days and he knew all of these
Awesome.
letters and
Yep.
he was such a social butterfly. And I think, them having exposure to all of that, all of those academics and those other kids. And I think it really prepared them for school in a way that I personally feel like I couldn't have prepared them at home.
Right.
And some parents can do that and they're really good at
Yeah.
that. I am certainly not. And I think that's one important thing that we have to realize is that no matter who we are in this motherhood journey, is that we need a village. We
Right.
can't do it alone. And whether your village is other caretakers or your family or friends or whoever that is, it's just we can't do it alone. And so really being able to trust other people and have them help you can really
Yeah.
get you through that. But I do think that the guilt can be strong, especially in those really young years.
Yeah. And I mean, even like stay-at-home moms, if they are like the best teachers for their kids, maybe they're a horrible cook, or maybe they're horrible at laundry, or maybe I don't know. There's so many things that we aren't good at, but there's
Right.
things we all thrive at, and we should try to take advantage of those, whether we are a stay-at-home mom, working mom, outside the home, inside the home. Like, we all have strengths and weaknesses. And I think it's so true. Like, you're going to have to get help in some way. Nobody can do it all and do it well and be sane. And, maybe a few people, but I'm not one of them. And I think it's great to promote the message that, like, it's okay to ask for help. It's hard no matter what you do. Okay, so every episode, I like to either share my own survival tip or ask my guest what a survival tip they have to kind of get through motherhood, or something that helps them that would maybe be helpful for other moms to hear.
Well, I'm kind of a type A person. I'm trying not to be like that so much. But I would say, and this is in general, I think finding tools and systems that can help support you and keep you accountable while not making you feel guilty are really key. I just started using this app within the last week. It's called Routinery.
Okay.
And if anyone struggles with going to bed at a decent time every night or having a good morning routine every morning, I would
Yeah.
definitely recommend this app. It has helped me start to solidify a really great bedtime routine for myself. Because like I said, I'll be up till all hours of the night working. And I also, like I talked about this a little bit before, but I think having a planner is and it doesn't have to be pretty. You don't have to put
Right.
stickers in it. Find something that works for you that can be your brain in a notebook or your brain on paper. I'm one of those people that prefers to have it on paper. I know that some people like to do it in their phone. Any way is fine. But the more you can plan and the more you can write out and the more you can keep track of, I think overall, if you're trying to do many tasks, which we all are, the more successful that you'll be.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check out that app. I love routines, and having an app to help with that I think would be awesome. Well, thank you, Jen, so much. I think this conversation was super helpful. I think everybody hearing, how you're able to balance a full-time working job outside the home and a YouTube channel is super helpful. I think a lot of people are looking to get in the online world. And so I really appreciate hearing how you're balancing and what you're saying no to, and things like that. So I really appreciate you coming on here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was fun chatting. And yeah, I think that this is a great resource for, I mean, not just moms who work outside the home, any mom who needs some tips or to feel less alone.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And then before we say goodbye, why don't you just let everybody know where they can find you on YouTube and social media?
Sure. So on YouTube, I am just my name, Jen Chapin. My last name is spelled Chapin. And then I have the same username on Instagram, just Jen Chapin. So pretty easy to find.
Perfect. Yeah. And I will have all those links in the show notes as well. I loved that conversation with Jen so much. It was so fun to talk to somebody who I can really relate to being on YouTube, but just hearing, somebody who is a nurse full time. I have known a lot of nurses, but there's so many different types of nursing. So it was really cool to see her journey and how she balances that as a mom. And I just love talking to other working moms. So if you guys are interested in being interviewed, head over to worklifeblue.com/podcast/apply, and you can apply to be featured on the podcast. I'm really looking for working moms of all different types. And maybe you're not working in a traditional sense, but you're a caregiver to, a family member, or you run, the school board or something like that takes up a lot of extra time beyond motherhood. I want to hear so many stories from women of how they're juggling it all on top of motherhood. I just think there's so much to learn from each other, and I absolutely love learning from you guys and sharing along the way. So thank you guys so much for listening. I will be back soon with another episode. As always, if you could leave a rating and review, I would really appreciate it. Just head over to Apple Podcasts and then scroll down when you find the Work Life Blue page, and you can leave a rating and review. This really helps other people find this podcast and helps me know you're enjoying it. So guys, I hope you're having a great start to your year. Go love on your kids, go get something done, and go live your dreams. I'll talk to you next time.